Welcome back to Grand Theft Auto 4's Liberty City, a dingy, depressing, highly populated and yet somehow lonely place. Now those even fleetingly familiar with the GTA series will know these games are seemingly a hotbed for fun-fueled urban myths. Rumours of obscure occurrences, encounters and stories that exemplify the atmosphere established in the game to make the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. And this inspired a generation of video game myth-busting, and yet despite never being conclusively proven, and in many instances not being found in game files, many a GTA 4 urban legend stands strong to this day, even if they're not necessarily believed. On the flip side, there's many a myth that may indeed actually have some basis. In Grand Theft Auto 4, there are many of these myths, so to speak, and this video is not going to explore all of them, as there are plenty that simply have no basis whatsoever. But I thought in today's little video we'd explore the more interesting ones. Even if they all turn out to be a load of twaddle, I thought it would make for interesting content. So please enjoy as we dive into the urban legends of Liberty City. To be perfectly clear, I doubt this video is going to have the effect of introducing anything new, and for the most part these myths are falsehoods. But I do believe there's a conversation of their value to be had that I'll save for the end of the video. The countless myths and legends that arose from the release of Grand Theft Auto 4 were not necessarily unique. At the very least, GTA 3, Vice City and San Andreas were full of them, and they've all collectively amassed them for a very similar reason. And it doesn't all boil down to eyebrow-raising glitches in a particular place and time that allows your imagination to run wild, but rather just the last bit. It's clear world design is a priority when it comes to Rockstar Games, and players quickly pick up on that sort of thing, and that encourages them in this instance to explore. And especially before the internet went nuts, the communication of peculiar occurrences quickly became their own stories. These days it's far less plausible to have endless myths and legends about a game that don't have any basis whatsoever, because you can find every portion of the game recorded in somebody's gameplay and uploaded to YouTube. In Rockstar's case, when it comes to Grand Theft Auto, factor that by 10,000 and you're halfway there. There's no longer a need to accent your experiences with your descriptions because you can just show it. And though that wasn't necessarily not the case come the time of GTA 4, YouTube certainly wasn't the well-oiled machine for gaming content that it is now. Not that I believe all the parts are in the correct order, that's a different discussion. Gaming content was certainly on the rise, but the point stands there was a greater inclination to expressing your experiences through description and anecdote than there is today. And as those peculiar experiences got shared and added to, gradually becoming distorted over time, they reach a point where down the grapevine, they become fascinating stories that compel you to pick up your controller, fire up the game, and look for it yourself, as that was once upon a time the surest way you'd find out if a story had any truth to it. Sure, the explanations often wound up being pedestrian, yet the urban myths were a further facet through which people enjoyed these games, and by Grand Theft Auto 4, Rockstar Games had long since twigged on and started feeding into it. And so, our first stop is a trip to our local twat, where we can read a Liberty Tree article titled Urban Myths Run Wild. Police officers spoke out yesterday about the incredible spate of urban myths that are damaging the image of Liberty City. The non-stop rumours of dead pop stars, Sasquatches, giant alligators, secret cities, invincible criminals, and dogs have all been causing widespread disturbances in the minds of insane residents, said one spokesman, who was investigating reports a man had his drink spiked and his kidney stolen, which turned out to be spurious. We will stay with this story. In related news, police are investigating claims a whale was seen swimming in Middle Park. This article references various urban myths from previous Grand Theft Auto titles in a way that both acknowledges the discussions around them, but also mocks them for being ridiculous because they were, and they are, whilst also acknowledging that people would come up with new legends to satisfy the world of Grand Theft Auto 4. On Rockstar's part, there was no telling what those stories would wind up being because they weren't intended. However, they knew there'd be a lot of them, and players would have to sift through them. But what did these fables wind up being? Well, I wish to dedicate a large chunk of this video to exploring some of my favourites. I can't explore them all because I don't hate myself that much, but there are a lot that aren't too fleshed out and are based on rather simple glitches, and any explanation other than there being a glitch just seems irrational. But some of these largely tall tales are much more fleshed out, and regardless of whether or not they hold a shred of truth, they're genuinely interesting. And those are the myths I wish to focus on. The premise of a sewer alligator should be no surprise to anybody. Effectively, it's an alligator that lives in the sewers. These rumours in the real world are largely fictional and pertain specifically to New York City for the most part. GTA 4's Liberty City is very heavily based on New York, and naturally on the in-game website Craplist there is a reference in the Lost and Found section to this urban myth, in which a resident of Liberty City has lost his illegal pet crocodile, and though she's only small, it is implied that she's on the loose somewhere. Alligators are also mentioned in the Urban Myths Run Wild article, leading players naturally to speculate that maybe there could be crocodiles or alligators found in the sewer systems of Liberty City, with some players claiming sightings and encounters. Supposedly, these alligators are very aggressive and will attack the player on sight, with points of interest being large sewage pipe entrances, specifically in the rough area of South Slopes Broker, the middle class area where the dwarf crocodile Betty supposedly escaped from. But though there are proven references in text form to sewer alligators or crocodiles, as we've just gone over, there is absolutely no evidence that they can be physically found. So I suppose it's up to the player to decide whether or not there are dangerous murder lizards hiding in the sewers, or indeed anywhere else in Liberty City, but it is highly unlikely that they are physically present within the confines of the gameplay. In the real world, the notion of alligators inhabiting the New York sewage system is largely dismissed due to incompatible living conditions. However, this caliber of animal has often been rescued as exotic pets, meaning it isn't unheard of for them to be found in unorthodox locations, but the likelihood of a population existing in a sewage system is incredibly low. And that's also possibly the case for GTA 4's Liberty City. Now, the notion of vampires existing within the Grand Theft Auto series began with GTA Vice City, with many an Easter egg hinting at them. However, come GTA 4, the point of vampires became something of an investigation. On My Room, the in-game parody of MySpace, we can find various reprehensible people, including the serial killer Eddie Lowe and one user known as RavenVamp11, a 17-year-old female living within Liberty City, occupying the profession of student, and though her profile is quite alarming, it's in her bio where she refers to herself as Octavia Dark, Countess of the Nosferatu. She also claims she's not an emo, goth or punk, and insists that she's a vampire spelt with a Y, not an I. And she's been a vampire for the past 9 months since she met her boyfriend, Duncan the Morbid, with whom she engages in silly time with in a graveyard. For the most part, it's a mental health crisis with a vampire lick of paint, and she goes into extensive details about her thoughts, including disclosing that Duncan stated he will kill her parents for resisting her identity as a vampire, resulting in a visit from the police. She also claims she prefers to use her teeth as a weapon and likes coffins. In the comments section there is a comment left by Duncan the Morbid that reads, "Tonight we feast on the blood of virgins, Octavia my love." Above all else, it appears to be a twisted, edgy juvenile fantasy. shared between a dysfunctional young couple, and though it has sinister tones of its own, there's nothing really to suggest that these two are actually vampires, but it did get players wondering if such beings could be encountered in the open world of Liberty City, specifically around cemetery areas, with players reporting strange goings-on in Duke's Cemetery. Of course, a cemetery at night holds a naturally creepy atmosphere, making it ground zero for the imagination to run wild. And though there are people present, they don't appear to be fornicating. However, there is an interesting detail on the graves in this graveyard, and I'm not necessarily talking about the fact that you can just clip through the McCreary grave, as amusing as that is. The dates on some of the graves are strange, and appear to suggest that people buried here were born in the 14th century and died in the 19th, or at least that's what it looks like. It's probably a texture error of some description, but if we run with it for a second, it would mean these people lived for centuries, which is just not natural. This is not, however, unique and can be seen in various places, but the 8s and 3s do appear to be quite muddled to read when you look at them from different angles, which means, in my opinion, these are likely not the graves of vampires, but rather the numbers looking so similar that at that resolution, it's harder to tell the difference. That or it's just a tiny detail Rockstar hoped nobody would pay attention to. That said, Rockstar has since put an actual vampire in Red Dead Redemption 2, it would seem, so it's fairly clear they quite like bringing up the subject. Therefore, it's hard to discount the existence of vampires in the Grand Theft Auto universe, because you never know when you might get a more on-the-nose encounter in the future. And though some examples of Vice City experiences and encounters might bolster the case, there's still some way to go before such a legend can be verified. This is without a doubt the most infamous Grand Theft Auto 4 myth out there. It's an interesting story even if its validity is shaky at best. Supposedly a mysterious cryptid lurks in the Liberty City subway, an apparent half-man, half-rat creature with a remarkable ability of running at incredible speeds. Many players have reported witnessing the Ratman, sharing stories in which he runs away and shouts, "I am the Ratman." And others even claim the infamous Ratman can attack the player, killing us instantly. Now, Liberty City is a filthy place, and the subway having a rat infestation is alluded to in The Lost and Damned, and cut dialogue suggests that these rats aren't small. Furthermore, the subway has a large quantity of homeless people seeking shelter, so the subway almost certainly has its fair share of rats and its fair share of men, but that doesn't explain the rumours of a hybrid creature. Most sightings of this Ratman appear to fixate at the Eastern Service Station, which can be found here on the map, and it's clear when you explore this service station that it's intended to put the player in a place of unease. It's dimly lit and the lights flicker. There are plenty of twists and turns for something to jump out at you, and with sparks frequently blasting from cables on the walls, there is always something moving, even when there isn't. Upon my exploration, I didn't find anything of note, but I cannot deny the atmosphere of this staircase is one of tension. There are irregular fluid stains on the floors, more than likely oil of some description, though this is speculated to be the Ratman's blood, and many a theorist has labelled this place the Ratman's lair, even though sometimes there will be workers down here. I will say the constant sparks in the corner of your vision make you feel as if something is moving over there, but I can find nothing to suggest that this is anything more than a poorly maintained staircase in a dimly lit area. Apparently there have been images circulating of the Ratman. However, these images follow the same pattern of being such a low resolution that nothing of note can be made out, and considering how many people investigate these areas with the purpose of finding this mysterious, elusive character who may not exist, I find it puzzling that a higher resolution encounter has yet to be recorded and shared with the world. Furthermore, these lower resolution images could very well be edited, as that's a lot easier to do when something doesn't necessarily need to be detailed. As for the Ratman supposedly killing players, well, these encounters can occur on active rails, and the subway trains can sort of sneak up on you and hit you from behind, which is an incredibly disorientating way to go. Another theory is the Ratman is just a homeless man who can run incredibly fast. Another connection I've seen drawn up is this crap list job listing titled Human Lab Rats Required, but that doesn't appear to allude to human experimentation with rat DNA, but rather simply clinical trials in which pesticide is injected into your eye, and the term lab rat doesn't necessarily allude to rats. There are also, to a lesser extent, rumours the Ratman is also present in Grand Theft Auto 3, so as for whether or not I believe in the Ratman, well, frankly, I don't. I don't think he's physically findable within the game. But I think there's a legend here that if we ever returned to Liberty City in a future GTA title, Rockstar would be foolish not to take this story and turn it into something satisfying for those who have spent countless hours already chasing what is likely little more than a creepy story that got out of hand. It's a tale as old as time. Stories of hauntings are all around us. In fact, I was very recently in York, and you'd be hard-pressed to find somewhere there that wasn't haunted, besides from maybe everywhere if you don't believe in ghosts. But to cut a long story short, here are the supposed Grand Theft Auto 4 locations that are apparently haunted, and I'm certain there are many, many more. Players have reported your run-of-the-mill ghostly encounters at various locations throughout Liberty City. Strange voices, movement, and some have even claimed they've seen a ghost in-game. I can't find a single case that's been confirmed, but Rockstar would put a ghost into Grand Theft Auto 5. So maybe some of the supposed hauntings of GTA 4 has some canonical truth, in absence of any actual verifiable presence. But we're going to move on, because unless there's actually a ghost, this is kind of a boring subject. But they are an indicator that a game's atmosphere, for example, is on point. It's no secret that Rockstar Games has something of a collective alien fetish, with UFOs featuring in both Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. But apparently there are also unidentified flying objects in Grand Theft Auto 4. You just have to ignore the fact that planes exist, and suddenly the blinking lights in the night sky are aliens. The evidence of UFOs in GTA 4 seems to largely stem from a mod, therefore it's highly unlikely that there are aliens, at least in GTA 4 that you can find. But nonetheless, it's an enticing notion. Supposedly, Colony Island houses a serial killer. Dubbed the Colony Island Killer, sightings of this murderer seem to be confined to the Colony Island Cemetery to the north of the small isle. Now apparently these encounters are rare, but the Colony Island Killer is not believed to use a specific character model. Meaning, if you're attacked by a generic pedestrian here, it wasn't a generic pedestrian, it was a serial murderer. However, the rumour had to come from somewhere. Well, behind the lighthouse, players can find an out-of-place looking but discarded baseball bat that they can pick up and use as a weapon. The theory goes this is the killer's weapon of choice. But if that is the case, why would he leave it out in the open here? I have no idea. Furthermore, some strange pedestrian behaviour in the area may suggest the presence of a phantom threat, i.e. apparently every so often an NPC will randomly start running away in panic. But that is almost certainly likely to be a glitch. But the notion of at least a serial killer being active in Liberty City during the events of Grand Theft Auto 4 is confirmed during the side missions with Eddie Lowe. Any more would likely be overdoing it from the perspective of game design, so I'm inclined to believe the absence of evidence is a reliable indicator that there is no Colony Island Killer that we can find at the very least in Grand Theft Auto 4. Now supposedly the Rotam Monster is a sea monster that has circled Liberty City since its founding as New Rotterdam in the 17th century. Down by these shipwrecks to the southwest of the map, it's said that if you look out to sea, the monster can very rarely be seen. Various players have taken to recording their attempts to find the monster to no avail, and though sometimes the upper surface of the water's textures darken, which can be mistaken for the shadow of a monster, but that's probably more so a credit to Rockstar's ability to create atmosphere, even with little to nothing, rather than an indicator of something scary beneath the water's surface. And it's only natural for a human to look out at an endless ocean and try to rationalise that there's something there, even when there isn't. As it stands, however, the myth is unlikely to hold any truth, as it would appear there is no monster to be seen. But there has always been something unsettling, in my opinion, about looking out to sea and seeing nothing but the horizon in the distance. To conclude, there are many, many more myths in Grand Theft Auto 4, and that only quantifies a small portion of the overall amount of myths in the Grand Theft Auto series. Some overlap, but some are entirely original to one specific title. I could go into detail about all of them and explain over and over again why we found nothing, because if it's still classified as a myth, there's a very good chance there's nothing to find. And though I'm sure that would make for entertaining content, there's a conclusion that can already be drawn, and I'd like to get to it while there are still people watching. The myths and legends of Grand Theft Auto 4 are a testament to how Liberty City provides people with a means to run away with their own imaginations. It also showed what the fanbase was after with regards to enriching this world space in a way that doesn't compromise the core values of the Grand Theft Auto series. And it feels like that's a lesson Rockstar Games took to heart, starting to put actual unexplainable mysteries and mythological sightings and the like in future installments. Grand Theft Auto 5 has an abundance of secrets. Red Dead Redemption 2 has an endless amount of secrets of this caliber. I don't doubt that Rockstar have always intended to put some in to capitalise on the atmosphere that they've created, but I also feel as if the game's fanbase's imaginations helped facilitate this. So I feel as if some modicum of credit for the much more in-depth world design that includes more of these alarming, sometimes interesting, sometimes curious, and sometimes otherworldly stories that encourage you to explore the more recent Rockstar Games open worlds is due not only to the clear attention to detail when it comes to this particular portion of Rockstar Games' design philosophy, but also because the prevalence of these myths and legends from as early on as Grand Theft Auto 3 all the way up to Grand Theft Auto 4 and beyond showed the fanbase's clear interest in discussing less explainable occurrences in the open world that perhaps encourage people to explore it to no end. And as the internet has transformed into a sharp tool that can quickly debunk things that simply aren't true or aren't there, there naturally needed to be more in this department to chew on in order to retain that audience that had been cultivated, even if that wasn't entirely intentional to begin with. And that's why I believe these myths and legends, even without any evidence really at all, hold such power over how Rockstar Games has shaped their worlds. Because I can't imagine a future Rockstar Games installment without the wacky, the weird, the unexplainable, the mysteries. And over the years they've certainly evolved to be present in greater extents than once upon a time. It's how these things inspire a player to go out and explore the world for things that may not even be there. It may not have held absolute power in this department, but I think it was a good means to indicate that the fanbase clearly wanted more. And by more, I mean more of this sort of atmosphere, these explorations, these stories that can be uncovered even if they don't make too much sense. It's not about whether or not they make sense, it's about the feelings they evoke, the feelings that help sell the world, sell the atmosphere. And in return, if something happens to be there, the players are rewarded or left scarred for life. There's no in between, I'm afraid. And that's why I think though the urban legends of Grand Theft Auto 4 are dismissible, I can't bring myself to outright do it because I feel as if they have value despite just being stories spread on forums online, and somehow they intrigue me. Of course, Rockstar has always had a knack for this sort of atmosphere, but I also feel as if the players over the years have fed it, and collectively it's cultivated in some of the most interesting open worlds in gaming history. And that's where I'm going to leave this video. Thank you all for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like. If you're new, maybe hit subscribe if you fancy it. If not, no worries, it's just there for people who like this sort of thing and are into this sort of content. If that's you, you know what to do if you fancy it. But with any luck, I'll be seeing you all with another video at some point. And until next time, please take care and goodbye.